Welcome into the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani A. Lunis. Sherrod Blakely, Gary Washburn join me. The NBA season is over. The Golden State Warriors are the champs. How are you two feeling?
Well, Kwani, are you giving the Celtics their flowers with the crown that you rock? Is that kind of your way of kind of, giving them their props for a really good season?
I like that because there's been so much negativity surrounding the fact that they lost. Let's not forget the Warriors are a good team, whether you didn't think that at the beginning of the season when they had a slow start. I'll give the Celtics their flowers, but this is also for the summer solstice. It's the longest day in the year. But yes, the Celtics do deserve some flowers. So let's focus on the positives because, I like to focus on positivity.
On the steady flowery positives. Okay, flower power. I see you.
Yeah, flower power. But what were some of your takeaways from that Game 6 loss? Let's start with that, and then we'll go into the positivity.
Well, Golden State, look, they smelled blood in the water, and they did what all great teams do. They put them away as quickly as they can. Steph Curry, clearly the MVP. They got big games from lots of different guys, and that really was the story of the series. I thought that, Steph Curry, I thought he played good for the most part, but it was the impact that others around him made that I thought ultimately spelled the difference. Draymond Green, Klay Thompson had, one or two really good games. Jordan pulled off the bench. The third Splash Brother was doing his thing. Gary Payton II had his best playoff game scoring wise ever in the finals. And you start going down the list, they had like 3 or 4 or 5 guys that were Kevon Looney, I thought was really solid throughout, even though his minutes I thought were a little bit less than they should have been. But the bottom line is there's a long laundry list of players who are as good or better than they normally are. Whereas the Celtics, when you look at the ledger on their side, other than Al Horford, I'm not sure there's anyone that you could look at and felt they played as well or better than they normally do. And if that's the case, the fact that you even went 6 games is certainly a testament to what you are and what you're about. But that doesn't do anything to soothe the wounds that I know the players, the coaches, the organization is feeling, because they know they had it. They had a shot, and they didn't do all the things you're supposed to do when you get that opportunity.
Yeah, I thought that they really had a chance to win the series. Obviously, the fourth quarter of Game 4 is a stretch that people will point to. If they close out that game and don't get outscored like 17-6 to end it, then they take command of the series. It looked like they were fighting Golden State off. They had taken their best blow, and then all of a sudden the offense shuts down. And then I think after that, the wind was knocked out of their sails. Like, they just weren't the same team. Game 5, they played an outstanding defense against Curry, and he went 0 for 9. They still lost the game by 10 points. And I just think Game 6, they just didn't have a lot left. Jayson Tatum just had a really, unfortunately, bad series in terms of just his impact and scoring, and especially in the second half. He got off to good starts, couldn't finish them, wasn't that closer. Jaylen Brown carried him at times. Al Horford had his moments, and then the bench just wasn't there. I think what this series did, if you're a Celtic fan looking to the long term, it exposed their weaknesses that they need to improve on in the offseason so they can improve on them. You don't run it back. I think the Celtics saw what it takes to be a champion. They're not quite there, and so they can't just run it back. Everybody's going to get better in the summer. Like, you got to upgrade some positions. You got to make improvements. I think that's the silver lining in this series for the Celtics is they know that they're close. They won 2 games. They could have won a third, and they played good enough defense to win the series, quite honestly. Golden State didn't have a game where they scored 130, 140 points, but the offense couldn't score. So it's time for some upgrades in several positions. And I think that they were, unfortunately exposed, and they were the second best team in the NBA. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't leave a good taste in your mouth.
No, for them, Gary, you know what, though? What jumps out to me is that there were really 2 areas that I think, and Brad Stevens kind of alluded to that in his, postseason press conference, that they need another guy who can go out there and get buckets. And I think they need that, and they need, I think, a legitimate playmaking backup. I don't think they need to bring in someone who's better than Marcus Smart, because the criticism of Marcus Smart, I think is displaced when you think about the fact that look who he has played behind when he's been in Boston. Isaiah Thomas, Kyrie Irving, Kemba Walker. I mean, you take another player at his position and you put them on the same roster with the guys that he's played with, how many of them are really going to get that starting nine? How many of them are going to play major minutes? I think Marcus Smart, this was the first year where he had a legitimate shot to run the team. And yes, he was not as great as people would have liked, but he did not totally suck. There were more games where he helped them be successful than there were not. And I'd like to see him have a counter coming off the bench of someone who can just run an offense, that can run it. They don't have to necessarily get you buckets or anything like that, but someone who can be a facilitating organizer out there to complement him and frankly, fill an area that I think that they need someone to bolster if they're going to get over that hump and win a title. Because Gary, your point is spot on. They're close. They're damn close.
Well,
yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I just think with Marcus, I think the question is, what do they do in terms of getting into their fourth quarter offense was a problem all season, okay? And it was accentuated by the Warriors. The Warriors just blew it out in the proportion that this team isn't a good fourth quarter team in terms of like scoring the basketball, running their offense. How much of that responsibility is on Marcus? How much is on Tatum? How much is on Jaylen Brown? But the fact is that you need a playmaker. You need someone who can shoot. You need someone who can get into the paint. You need someone who can distribute the ball. I think Marcus did as best as he could in his responsibilities. I thought he had a good, strong, solid season. But do you need an upgrade? I'm not talking about replacing Marcus, but someone that can take some of his minutes or move him to another position, or, because I just think that you could either keep running the same situation out there and hope the fourth quarter defense gets better, or hire a quote-unquote offensive coordinator who can get you into some sets that will be successful, or you get a guy who can come out and, run your offense, get into the paint, drive to the basket, just, shoot a mid-range, boom. Like, we joke about how good a guy like Ish Smith is against the Celtics. He drives them crazy, but he also can get you into your he's the greatest start Ish Smith, no, but a guy like that who can get you into your sets, who can get you the ball, get Tatum and Brown the ball where they don't need to dribble as much. That's going to be a big issue in the summer. Like, how do they approach that? Is Marcus good enough to take this team to a championship level? He doesn't need to be a championship level point guard. He doesn't need to be an all-star point guard, but is he good enough to take him to that next level in terms of running the offense? Because fourth quarter offense was a problem all year.
I agree. But Gary, I'll tell you right now, I think he is good enough, but here's what I see happening in the fourth quarter if you're the Celtics and you want to upgrade that. You make Tatum your primary playmaker and you get him guys who can make shots. I mean, Tatum has shown the ability to evolve into someone who can make plays for others. He can score still, but he's also has stepped his playmaking game up. And you look at the guys that he's surrounded in terms of knocking down shots, there's just not a lot of guys on his roster. I would like to see him with a Jordan Poole-like guy to play with, so that in the fourth quarter, you can have Marcus on the floor, but Marcus could be maybe your third playmaking option, where Tatum is your number one, and you got a scorer who can knock a dead-on, spot-on shooter that Tatum can get the ball to. And if they play that guy too close, then Tatum can take his man off the dribble. And Marcus Smart can be that third wheel at that point. Because up to that point in the game, Marcus has been the guy that's helped organize things. But in the fourth quarter, Tatum has to be the guy that's driving that train. And he needs to have at least one guy that he can count on who can make an open damn shot from the perimeter. Because he's going to draw defenses, and they're going to get open shots. But we saw Pritchard up and down in that regard. Nesmith more down than up. Jaylen Brown more down than up in the fourth quarter, inconsistent in that regard. There wasn't that one guy that he could count on. I look at guys like Terrence Ross. I look at guys like T.J. Warren, who are, I think, guys who are all about getting buckets. They need another guy who can just go out there and get buckets.
So that being said, how have you seen Marcus Smart's game improve over this year, but specifically during the playoffs?
You go first, Gary.
Well, I just think he's been more efficient, but I just saw some of the things in the finals, especially some of those quote unquote trick passes, the no look, the silly turnovers, the emotional play, taking too many threes, some of the things that have been his issue over the years started to creep up again. And I think he had a nice, strong season. I thought he showed a lot of people what he could do. He proved a lot of people wrong. But I also think that he's got to shore up some things. I don't think he's ever going to be a great shooter, but, it's okay for Marcus to take a mid-range shot. But I think, it's okay for him to make the extra pass. But and then just the fancy stuff, that's not your game, Marcus. You're not Magic Johnson. You're not Jason Kidd. Like, stop it with the no look and all that. That looks cool and it makes SportsCenter highlights, but a lot of those passes were picked off, were not, it just, that I just think back to Game 5 when he threw a lob into Jaylen who was triple covered. And it was just knocked away, and then they got a run out. It was just one of those come on, Marcus. You got to be sound with the ball. Take care of the ball. The turnovers aren't all his fault, but I think it's a byproduct of Jaylen and Jayson handling the ball too damn much, trying to create their own shot. They need someone who can help them create their own shot. Create their shots for them, as opposed to Jayson always taking dudes off the dribble.
Yeah, well, Tatum and Brown, that's a big part of their game. Just like for Marcus, a big part of his game, unfortunately, is making some of those crazy ass passes. That's what he do. But let's not act like that's something that we don't expect to see. That's part of who he is. But so is making hustle plays that very few people can make, that he makes regularly. And again, I think Marcus, he's one of those players that you got to take the bitter with the sweet. And the mistakes that you're pointing to, Gary, there's no question that's something the Celtics would like him to shore up a little bit. But I just think that his overall body of work is there's more positives to that than negatives. And the thing that I keep coming back to as I kind of look at the season, in retrospect, and just look at his career in a much wider vacuum than just an 82-game slate, this is really the first time he's had a chance to be that lead guard for these guys. And even though obviously he's not a rookie, when you go through something the first time, there's a lot of learning that goes with that. And so I'm curious to see what he does next season when he has a full year under his belt. Because remember, he was on the cusp of being the team starting point guard when he got hurt. And the little fella, Isaiah Thomas, stepped into the starting lineup, and it was a wrap after that. When Marcus got healthy again, he was coming off the bench because Isaiah was that good. And so his opportunity to be that lead guard has been delayed for just simply because the guys ahead of him were better. And that's fine. That doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means they were better. He got his chance this year to be the lead guard. They get all the way to the NBA Finals, and yet we're wondering whether or not he's good enough to win a championship. I think the guys around the Celtics have to be better. Marcus can obviously improve. There's no doubt about it. His game has to get better. Yeah, but let's not pretend as if his game is the reason why they didn't get a championship.
Game 7 against Miami, where he decided he was going to be the dude taking the dagger shot, they almost blew that lead. And if Jimmy Butler hits that three, the whole narrative for the season is different.
You're
Jimmy
right.
Butler hits that three. Marcus has to be okay. He's not Steph is capable. Steph Curry is a spectacular player, capable of spectacular things. So when he takes the 30-footer, he takes the shot off the screen and tries to draw the foul. Most of the time it goes in, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why he's one of the greatest to ever play the game.
Exactly.
Steph can do that.
But if you're not that player, Marcus can't do those things. The dagger three, and I get it. He's turned himself to a decent 3-point shooter. But let Tatum take that shot. Let Brown take that shot. Your job as the point guard is to get the ball to your teammates, run the show, run the offense. And I think Marcus sometimes he wants to be a scorer and a point guard. Like, he's got to have a clear message, right? A clear goal. Like, my job is to score when I need to, but then get the ball to my teammates, get the lobs to Rob, get the ball to Jaylen and Jayson, and like get that offense going with as much efficiency as possible, because this offense was not efficient this season. And that's partly because of Marcus, some of the showboating, some of the questionable decisions. So he's got to shore that up, right? Like, and you can run it back with him as the starting point guard. But when Brad says we need a playmaker, you need a backup point. Like, he needs someone that can come off the bench. It's not Peyton Pritchard. Unfortunately, Peyton's not a point guard. He's a 6-foot shooting guard who isn't as efficient as you like him to be shooting. Aaron Nesmith, he was supposed to be Jordan Poole. That ain't worked. Okay? That ain't work. Like, the reason that Jordan Poole was a 28th pick in the draft that the Celtics took Grant Williams. And they had Matisse Thybulle. They had 2 chances of Jordan Poole. And some people thought Jordan Poole was a bad pick, and he's really developed, right? But you look at that draft, and it's like, that's kind of on Danny. I'm not saying, they should have taken Jordan Poole. A lot of teams missed on Jordan Poole. But Nesmith was supposed to be that dead-eye shooter, and Ime doesn't trust him. And that's a whole topic we could talk about, is what to do with Nesmith, because he said he's one of the best shooters and great. He's an outstanding, exceptional shooter, but in practice. And you and I, Sherrod, have seen there's some great, great shooters in practice. I mean,
Darko Milicic is one of the best practice players ever played in the NBA.
Guys, when they're working out at practice and they're 1-on-0, and they're hitting 22 threes in a row.
Butter.
It happens. It matters. Happens in the damn game, man. The game. I'm going to go Iverson on you. You're talking about practice, not practice.
It's not a game.
Aaron. Oh, I'm one of the best. Like, it just didn't translate in games. That's the problem with a bunch of guys who could shoot in practice. I mean, I saw before Game 7 against Miami, I saw Dwayne Dedmon knocking down threes in warm-ups. Okay, 7-foot Dwayne Dedmon. So anybody can shoot threes. You got to make them in the game. And I think that and the lack of development from Nesmith really hurt this team, because they didn't have another option, and he was kind of like, well, we'll play him if we have to. And you don't want your first-round pick, 14th overall, to be we'll play him we'll break glass in case of emergency. No, you want to go to him, and that's what hurt the team. His lack of development this year really damaged that bench, because after him, you had Stauskas and Sam Hauser, guys that you didn't expect much out of. And so the thing is, everybody's got to get better, but Smart is definitely on that list.
Gary really just went on his own practice rant. I think we need to put it up against AI, see which one we like best.
We talking about practice. I'm good in practice. That's fantastic.
But not a game.
Yeah, but not a game.
Not the game.
Not the game. We talking about practice.
I'm Mr. Practice.
I'm good. So I'll be knocking him down in practice. I mean,
I can knock him down in practice too.
He said that, and I like Aaron. He's a good kid. He's trying, but it hasn't worked out. Especially when you got Desmond Bane shooting 45%. We bring up Desmond Bane again. It's like, that's what they needed. Jordan Poole is what they needed, and those guys don't come cheap. You have to cultivate those guys. So do you hope Aaron becomes that guy next year? That's a lot.
We talked about how Marcus has grown and what he can improve on. What about Jayson Tatum? What have you guys seen from him?
Turnovers.
Well, yeah, more. He's improved his turnover.
Can we?
That ain't right. That ain't right.
Sorry.
That ain't right.
Kwani-
Go ahead, Sherrod.
Now, Kwani's supposed to be like flower power.
I know. I'm choosing the
Flowers.
positivity.
She coming with the dandelions on that one. Damn. She giving them the dandelions on that. Tatum obviously needs to get better in terms of managing his turnovers. But I think for him, the biggest thing is he's got to, and Brad touched on this a little bit he talked about how Tatum's leadership has improved this year from previous years. He's a little bit more vocal. That needs to continue to get better. He needs to get into that, look, it's a 5-point game. I'm taking over. I am taking over and they're not going to stop me. He needs to be more, and again, different kind of player, but he needs to have that Jimmy Butler edge about him in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler can go 2 for 17 through 3 quarters, but you know damn well he's taking every single shot he can in the fourth quarter. And damn near more the times than not, they go down. There's a different gear that Jayson Tatum's game has to go to in the fourth quarter that he has not discovered yet. And that doesn't make him a bad player. It just means that he's a 24-year-old who hasn't figured out how to take that next step from being an exceptionally gifted player to an upper echelon, I'm building my Hall of Fame resume right now in the moment kind of player. He's not there yet. But again, it's crazy that we're being critical of a team that's being led by a 24 and a 25-year-old. When you start looking around the NBA and you start looking at the teams that are in the conversation for a championship, they ain't that damn young. They're much older. They've gone through some things. And that's why if you're the Celtics, you know that you don't really have to do a whole lot with your roster to position yourselves to win a championship because you damn near won one this year with a 24 and 25-year-old carrying the weight. All you need to do is add another playmaker, and I think you're good. You're good.
Nah, I disagree, Sherrod. I think they need to do a lot with this roster. And I'm not talking about the frontline guys.
Okay.
I'm talking about, improve the bench. That's not easy.
There's no bench.
I just gave you 2. If you add a dead-on shot maker and a playmaker, like who? A guy that can get buckets like a TJ Warren.
Joe Harris makes $20 million a year.
Can't afford Joe Harris.
No, I'm not talking about Joe Harris. I'm talking about just somebody like Joe Harris because people think because he only shoots 3, he doesn't make that much. He makes $20 million. Getting the knockdown shooter is either A, you cultivate them, B, you hope that someone of them comes cheap in the mid-level or whatever, or takes a discount to play for the Celtics. Or
I'll take a discount.
$17 million trade exception to get a guy like a Duncan Robinson.
Right.
You use that and you add on, you become a luxury tax team. I think they have, I'm not talking about they have a lot, they got to overhaul the roster, but they have to do a lot of little tweaks. The third big. Obviously, Ime doesn't think much of Daniel Tice. It was a great story, him coming back. Oh, Daniel's back. Whatever reason, Ime didn't trust him because you can't expect Rob to play 80 games. He's not. Okay. Horford's 36. So you need a dependable third big man to come off the bench and give you some minutes and knock some dudes down and get some rebounds. Okay.
Grant's not that guy, Gary? Grant's not that guy?
Where was he? He didn't show up.
Grant had a bad series. Grant got it. Draymond got in his head. Offensively, he wasn't there. And it's just they did the Derek White deal. The Derek White deal to me has been a failure. Sorry. One, Josh Richardson was hooping for this team. Josh Richardson was doing well. I don't know why they had to put him in that deal, but I thought he was a dog. This team needs dogs. Derek came over. He shot 31% from 3. He scored 3 points total in the last 2 games of the series, the finals. And then it's okay, well, he best be, if that's the case, he best be a shutdown defender. Well, eventually the Warriors were switching everything to White because he couldn't guard Andrew Wiggins. So I'm not saying Derek's a bad player. He can help, but to depend on him to be the shooter, don't know. You can't do that anymore. Or score. Any points, Derek is going to be a bonus. They thought, oh, Derek remember Ime telling us, oh, well, he shoots 34% from 3, but that'll improve because he's getting a lot of open 3 looks. Well, we saw him get a lot of open 3 looks with the Celtics, and what happened? The one in Game 6, he hit the damn side of the backboard. Like, I'm not ripping him. Like, I think he's a solid player, but he makes 17 million. Like, build a team is hard. Okay. When dudes don't live up to expectations. When you try to do through the draft, Pritchard is done okay, but he's not like that knockdown shooter. Now, will he improve in the summer? He's not going to grow any, and he's probably not going to. So you're going to have to hope he just starts knocking down shots. Grant, I think, is a good player, but he's maxing his skill set. And then Derek White, and then Nesmith. Like, to me, they got to upgrade the bench, and that's not easy. Okay, you're going to have to go into the luxury tax, and you're going to have to rely. Robert's not playing 80 games, so you're going to have to need a big. Like, that's a lot of work. This is not just, Tatum is back, Brown is back. You want to bring Marcus back. Okay, Al, you're starting five, okay. But they need some assistance.
And you know how they can get that assistance?
They need to go to work, Kwani.
I've been listening to Sherrod too much, but I promise
That's
you.
Too much. Kwani, that's beneath you, but go ahead.
Indeed, they are the hiring platform for the Celtics. They can attract, interview, and hire all in one place.
Yes, indeed.
So instead of spending hours at the NBA draft or doing free agency, they can spend time finding the right candidates, and Indeed has a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it. So find the great talent faster through their virtual match assessments and virtual interviews. 80% of employers get quality candidates. So the Celtics get a quality bench with Indeed. And of course, the easiest way to do it is using our code, A-List. You'll get a sponsored job credit. So you can upload your job listing and get $75 off of that first listing. Sign up for Indeed.com. The Celtics, again, they could use it as well. But if you're looking to hire for your business, sign up with our code, Indeed.com/A-List. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire, you need Indeed.
Indeed.
Indeed, they do. So what else do the Celtics need to work on? We were talking about positivity. One person that had a pretty relative successful playoff run was Robert Williams. Despite the injuries, defensively, he was that guy for Boston. What do you want to see him improve on next year? Obviously, hoping he can continue to stay healthy.
Oh, Gary.
Obviously, just get some rest. I think Robert needs more of a post game, like a little short jumper, a little jump hook, like go to a big man camp, go and learn the skills of just like, and I said, he is blossomed. I think he's
like this flower on my head.
I think I have a headache.
Gary.
Anyway, a migraine.
Can't believe she said that.
Yeah, it's just awful. Anyway, he needs to develop not a long, like, he ain't going to be hitting 20 footers off the pick and roll, but he needs to develop a post game to where everything in a dunk or layup or put back, like 3-foot hook, 6-foot hook, left-handed hook, right? Like, go to a big man's camp back in the old days. Take a drink. They used to have the Pete Newell's big man camp, and a lot of the developing big men in the 80s and 90s used to go to Hawaii for like 2 weeks and work with Pete Newell, Berkeley coach, great coach at Berkeley. He was like a guru for the centers. And these guys would
coach at Berkeley?
Why he point behind him like Berkeley?
Right behind him, the greatest public school in the world. So he would go and work with these guys, like Akeem used to go, like a lot of these developing big men, because that was the next move. Okay, you can dunk and all that, but what's your next move after they start to dunk? Can you get a little 5-foot, 6-foot jump hook, a little short J? That's what Robert needs to do. Be in the gym every day. He can run fine, he can block the shots, he can rebound, work on one. He has a little short jumper. It just takes him a long time to release it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like he got to, he got to get it going, right?
Yeah.
He's got to get it just right.
Like catch and shoot, yeah.
Yeah, he needs to develop a short, medium range post game where, even if it's calling up Kareem, how to shoot a hook shot, like get someone who knows, Kevin McHale, somebody So call Robert Pitt, somebody who knows, can show him some tips. You can go travel down to wherever they are and work with them, and now and develop that part of the game where it just makes the defense even have to guard more than, okay, all we got to do with Robert is screen him out. Because remember, when he was getting the ball, he was bringing it down, and the Warriors was like, strip, like they were starting to strip him, right? Because he's got to stop bringing the ball to his waist. Because how many turnovers did he have in the finals when he was getting stripped? Because that was a thing. He brings it down, strip him. They're not going to call the foul generally on strips of big men like that, especially when it's Curry or or Draymond, an established defender who knows how to strip. So offensive arsenal, and keep the ball up high. Just the little things that big men need to work on. Robert's only 24 years old, so he's got plenty of time to develop. But take this summer seriously. Get his rest, get that knee right. Then in August or late August, go to somebody's camp or go to Akeem or whoever you need to go to. And go to somebody's big man camp.
The NBA brotherhood is so strong, though, when you mention that it's easy to get anyone's number. It seems as though, at least from the outside looking in. And to your point, they can just easily reach out to someone and say, hey, I want to develop skills like the way you have. And for the most part, I think rivalries aside, most vets and retirees are willing to help. So that's pretty good advice.
Yeah, but, I think, Robert, he's got to be smart about that. Like, he can't just be, reaching out to a guy who did a few things offensively. He's got to find a guy who can amplify his skill set. He needs to find someone who can not just recognize, but actually cultivate what he does well. He runs the floor well. He can jump out the gym. He can literally shoot over damn near anyone who's guarding him. Figure out a way to get him spots on the floor where he can use those skills to his advantage. I think Robert, he's just a raw piece of talent right now who hasn't quite figured out how to refine his game at both ends of the floor. Defense, he's got that pretty much on lock. He knows what he can do, what he can't do, and things of that nature. But his offense is just kind of this real murky, yet to be determined entity out there.
Yeah, I think that it's a big summer for Robert. And I think the Celtics understand that. First of all, you give him a month off, let him, rehab the knee, get as Ime said, get the muscles stronger around that knee, and then heal up a little bit, and then get to that gym, get to the lab, and work on that offensive arsenal. So when you come back, you're a much better offensive player besides dunking. You could imagine who you're going to double if he could start scoring in the paint. I'm not talking about dominating, scoring 25 points a game, but Robert needs to say, okay, I'll be a 10 and 10 guy. 10, 12 points a game, 10, 12 points, 10, 12 rebounds, 3, 4 blocks. Not 4 blocks a game, that's a lot. But 10, 12, 12, and 2.5. That should be his goal, 12 points a game. And not all on dunks, little short jumper, things like that, to whereas he could help this offense be more versatile.
So what about Al Horford? 36 years old, had a phenomenal playoff run, I think. What do you see coming from him next year? What is the future for Al Horford?
It's
loaded question.
The future is one with lots of money. That's what his future looks like. Listen, the thing about Al, I respect the fact that Al, frankly, did the damn thing.
He put it all there on the floor.
He went hard. I mean, Al did exactly what you want your veteran players to do, and that is play at a certain level during the regular season, become postseason time, step your game up. Now, of course, he had a couple of not so great games, like pretty much everyone on the damn Celtic roster. Mm-hmm. But I thought from the beginning of the playoffs to its end, I thought he was one of, if not the most consistent player for the Celtics. His ability to score, his defense, his rebounding. He was one of the few players that did most of those things at a relatively high level consistently. And there's no telling whether he can fire it up like that again next year. But if you're the Celtics, you damn sure want to take a look and see, because he meant that much to you and your success this year.
I think Al's fine. I think Al will be in great shape. He'll take care of himself. He'll get his proper rest, and he'll do exactly what he needs to do. But I also think at age 36 to that 37, you might want to temper some of his playing time. You might not want to rely on him so much, but I think that he has exceeded expectations. I think he's got another year left in him. And then, if you want to bring him back for another year after that, you can, because he's obviously aging well. But I think with Al, keep working on that three. Maybe he can become like a 38% three-point shooter, but I think he's improved, obviously, shooting the ball. I'd like to see Al post up a little more. I think that's what the Warriors put him in those positions to where they made him a post player, which is not really his game. And, he can, but he takes a long time. It's like the old days where Patrick Ewing, where he gets the ball, he dribble, left. Okay, now I'm gonna shoot. Like, you got to be real quick at your moves in these days, because doubles are happening or whatever. And so I thought the Warriors put Al in position to where it's like, okay, beat us in the post. And I'm not saying make Al, he's 36. He's not ever going to be a great post presence, but just a little bit of sharpening in his post game to where he can punish, smaller lineups.
Yeah.
So our final recap person that we need to recap for the year is Coach Udoka. What is your... Huh? Oh, well, yeah, I guess. Yeah, Jaylen, sorry. Speak about Jaylen.
Damn, Kwani. What you got against Jaylen?
She gave him dandelions too, Gary. He get dandelions too from Kwani. Damn.
Damn, she's
I'm
like,
sorry, Jaylen.
Whatever. He all right.
Be like...
All right, what about Jaylen? What did you guys think about his playoff?
Too late now.
I thought that if they had won, obviously they didn't. I still think he would have been, and this is not really like a hot take, but I think he would have been the MVP for this finals run that they had. What do you two think? No? Wow. Who would have been your pick then?
Tatum was going to be MVP if the Celtics won.
Because it's a popularity contest, but if we're looking at the numbers, Jaylen would have, he would have been snubbed then, and people would have had to riot.
Yeah. I mean, just like when Iguodala won, there were guys who were better than him, but Iggy, had a good game at the right time, and it was, again,
Gary, you would have voted for Tatum?
That's a close one. I mean, it all depends on how they would have won the series. I thought Jaylen Jaylen had 34 in game 6. He was carrying them. I thought Jaylen was good. I also think, though, Jaylen needs to work. Obviously, he was working on his damn ball handling.
Mm-hmm.
Quit dribbling in traffic. He's got, he was when he first got to the league, he was a bull in the China shop. He was one of those, drive into the basket, use my athleticism and get to the rim. And opposing teams in the scouting report was just strip him. Then he's going too fast, strip him, the ball go off his hip, he'll turn it over. Then he started working with assistant coach Tony Dobbs on his ball handling, and he got better. I think a lot better. But for whatever reason, I think this year his ball handling took a step back. And he needs to really work on his handle. As I said about Robert, if there's somebody who specializes, there's coaches who specialize in everything now. You want to go somewhere and work on ball handling, drills, just work on it to where you don't get stripped, where the scouting report is not strip this dude, reach in. Jaylen turned the ball over too much just on this dribble. And so if he does that, he's turned himself into a very good mid-range shooter, a solid three-point shooter, and get healthy too. I don't think Jaylen was completely healthy, get that hamstring right.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jaylen was laboring a little bit toward the end. Get healthy, but go work on that damn ball handling and free throw shooting. Free throw shooting, he missed a couple free throws in that Miami series that was really big. I mean, he was good from the line pretty much in the Golden State series, but he's got to work. He's going to get fouled. You can't be a 72%. You got to be 81, 82% from the line. know that you're going to splash those free throws when you get those free points. So free throw shooting and ball handling. Sherrod?
He's speechless.
I mean, the thing, he's just one of those players that you see the progress, you see the growth, and you see the impact, but you come away feeling like, but there's something not quite there that's keeping him from being on that same plateau that Tatum is on.
I know what it is.
What's that?
I know what it is.
Okay, Coach Lunis, what we got?
It's the fact that Tatum's been given the kingdom. I think Jaylen's still trying to figure out, how do I be great while still being the second man in everyone's eyes? That's really what it seems like.
No, I think there's more to it than that. I think that's part of it. I think that is part of the discussion, but I think there's more to it than just being second fiddle, because if you're playing at a certain level and the guy ahead of you is playing pretty good, but you're outplaying him, eventually you're going to topple him. Marcus Smart was the guy for the Celtics. Then come a little Isaiah Thomas, who not only took his spot when he got hurt, he kept his spot when he got healthy. So I don't know what it is that Jaylen's missing, but the more you watch him play, it's little things that he could do that could really make it interesting between him and Tatum. If he had a tighter handle and didn't turn the ball over as much, and instead of all those damn turnovers in the paint, he's hitting people with the mid-range J, then all of a sudden he becomes like scoring as many points or more than Tatum. And then you got to start asking yourself, okay, they're winning. He's scoring a lot of points. He's showing two-way talent. He's on the same plateau as JT, but he's not. Because both of them have flaws to their games, but Jaylen's they feel a little bit more pronounced. But again, this is a critical offseason for him and Tatum. I mean, Tatum, I think, needs to just continue to grow in his all-around game. Jaylen has to become better at handling the ball, not dribbling into the sea of opponent jerseys, losing the ball, and then it's just like it's off to the races the other way. He's got to cut that out. He has to trim that back.
Now we talk about the coach. Thank you, Gary, for making sure I didn't miss anyone. What did you think about Udoka's?
We're not talking about Sam Hauser?
Oh, we're not talking about everybody, all right? We pick.
No, did we talk about Jayson, though?
We did. Did we not talk about Tatum? Oh, my gosh. I thought we talked about Tatum. We've talked about Tatum the entire time.
We have. We just didn't
the turnovers.
Yeah.
We did talk about them. The 100 turnovers breaking the NBA Finals record. Postseason record. We talked about that already.
He had a few.
Yeah. All right, Udoka, let's get to him. You don't want to talk about
Gary,
the coach?
Will you let her get to Udoka? Obviously, she want to talk about Udoka.
We talk about the coach.
She want to talk about the coach.
You're a clown. What did you think about his first season as an NBA head coach?
Wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, obviously. Yeah.
The thing about it is this: he didn't just win games. When you start looking at just the Coach of the Year awards, there's so many different levels in which he is on a short list of coaches in Celtics lore. And when you come into this franchise and you put your imprint on the game, not only in terms of style of play, but also substance of success, the way he has in your first year, he's a real one. But he's got to get better, just like the players do. He's got to get a better offensive system. I think Gary touched on this a little bit earlier. Their offense just doesn't look fluid. It looks very choppy. And they don't even have to be like a top 5 offense, but damn, if you can put together a top 10 offense with the way they defend, you're going to be back in the finals. It's a matter of not if you get back there, but when. Are you going to be able to do it next year or the year after, or maybe the year after that? But they got to get better offensively, and a lot of that is on Udoka to put in a system that works with the talent that he's got around him, which, by the way, has to be upgraded. He knows that. Brad knows that. It's just a matter of how are they going to make that happen. But they got to get better players coming off that bench going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he did a great job as a first-year head coach. I thought he was overdue for getting the job. I thought he handled everything well. I think it took a while to get used to his system. I thought he turned them into a premier defensive team. And, I thought his staff did well. I just think, you coach against someone who's won 8 championships, 3 as a coach before with Steve Kerr, Kerr outfoxed him, and he's got to learn from that, and he's got to take away some things that Kerr did from that. And I think Ime needs, and he's got to start trusting some of his players, and if he doesn't, they need to get out of there. Like, he's got to have some frank conversations with Brad about this guy. Like, do I want to play him? Is he going to be part of our future? If Ime doesn't think so, then he needs to let Brad know that. And I think obviously they'll have those frank conversations about the future of the roster, because it was obvious he didn't trust Daniel Tice. He didn't really trust Nesmith. And so that wore everybody else the hell out. And, he ran some of his players probably a tad bit too hard, but it's the finals. You're going to play 40 minutes a game. So, and I just think, some of his weaknesses, Game 6, when he put in Pritchard and White at the same time, when they had that lead, and all of a sudden they got punched in the mouth, and, he put, White, neither White nor Pritchard were going to score. So you put two non-scorers on the floor against Golden State, who started to score. And it was just a terrible situation, and they ended up trailing after the first quarter, and they really couldn't recover. So I think I give him A minus, B plus grade for his first year. A obviously it would have been an A if they won a championship.
Yeah.
A plus. But I think he can learn some things. I think maybe hiring an offensive coordinator or working better with the offense, and also upgrading the roster. And I'm sure he'll have a say in who's going to come back and who's going to not come back.
The Celtics have a lot to look forward to for next season. Again, we're going to focus on the positivity. They had a really strong playoff run, but the draft is coming up in a few days, 2 days at this point. So what kind of moves are you two hoping that the Celtics, if they're even able to at that point, make during this draft? And
Crickets.
Crickets.
That's what I'm hearing on draft. Lots of crickets. I don't think they'll do much, because I think Brad and Ime and all the different things that the Celtics have done over the last year or so. The one thing that really sticks out to me when you talk about roster building and development is that they ain't in the business to go young and hungry no more. They are looking to add cats who have a little bit of season under the belt, got a couple flecks of basketball gray hair in their game right now, who didn't just come into the league. That's why you look at that bench, a guy like Derek White, who's been around the block but isn't quite over the hill. And they need more guys like that. Obviously, different skill set, but they need guys who have some experiences that they can bring to the table, who have very specific strengths that fit their need. They need someone who can come in and can score at the wing position. And whether that's Aaron Nesmith shocking the world and becoming the player that everyone saw he was as a 14th overall pick, or whether you go out and get a guy like Terrence Ross out of Orlando or someone else who has a longer track record of success and could be in the market to move into a situation to play for a team that is legitimately contending for a title.
Well, if we're talking about the draft, they have the 53rd pick, right? So, like, that's not going to be.
That's what I said, if they get anything.
Yeah, what I'd like to see is them bring in more draft prospects. Like, the fact is, okay, if you want to trade up, like, higher in the second round, if you see someone you like, go after the player you really want, and go after some players who can maybe impact your roster. Because if you look at the two-way guys, Matt Ryan and Broderick Thomas, like, are they prospects? Are those guys going to play quality NBA minutes eventually? Like, who really knows, right? Like, you have to start putting some prospects on your team, like Jawan Morgan, Stauskas. We'll see what happens with him in the offseason. I think they're going to really try to develop Sam Hauser because he can really shoot. And they know they kind of slipped with Max Strus. So they're just like, okay, we're not going to mess this up again. We're going to develop this damn shooter, even if he needs a couple years. But get some dudes. And then, the Summer League is coming up. Like, they got the kid from France, Bergen, and then the kid from Israel. Like, are they guys you can maybe bring to camp? Like, I think that they're going to have to really make some decisions on some of the young players. And also, Brad, do something on draft night. Grab someone who trade up higher into the second round and grab a guy who can help you maybe next year, a guy who might have slipped. Like, surprise us. Don't just, you trade your draft pick, the first round pick the last 2 years. Okay, now you only have 53. But do something to I think the fan base wants to be excited about some people coming in. And it's not going to be a first round pick. Like, obviously, you got to give up a lot for first round picks, but perhaps trade higher to the second round. Get a kid who's played 4 years of college who might be able to help you right away. Get someone in there, or take a project. Take someone who, is 19 years old from the G League Ignite or something and work with them and put them on a two-way. Like, keep bringing the youth and somebody who can help you into this program. And because you can't have your bench with Juwan Morgan and Malik Fitz and those are nice guys or whatever. They'll play in summer league, but you need to either get some veterans or get some prospects. Look at the Warriors. Now, they got lucky in the lottery, but they got Moody, Wiseman, and Kuminga waiting to play, who didn't play in the finals. Like, that's prospects. And obviously, you're not going to, they became all high draft picks, but in these days, in this draft, with all these dudes coming out, and who knows who's going to do what, right? Because Jordan Poole was a 28th pick. Like, you can grab a very good player in the high second round who will help your team. You just got to pick the right one.
Yeah, it's. I don't know, Gary. I don't know. I don't know about this crew. It's so much of success comes down to prospect finding, and nobody does that better than Golden State. When you look at the guys that even think about it, they went to 6 of the last 8 NBA Finals, and in 2 years where they didn't make it to the damn playoffs, they wound up getting a damn number 1 pick. In a year where he was clearly one of the top 2 or 3 prospects in the draft, and he fit a very specific need that they're going to have going forward, and that is a versatile big who can patrol the perimeter or control the interior. So the Celtics, they got to hit some home runs. You got to find that Jimmy Butler in the second round, that Draymond Green type at 54. Those guys are out there. It's just a matter of getting the right fit, because that's really when you're picking where they are. It's all about fit. It's never about the player. It's all about fit, because talent at that point is 100% subjective. So Brad and his staff have to do a better job of scouting. And you're right, Gary. If they want to move up, they're going to have to give up some serious collateral, which is why I don't think they'll find a spot in the first round. I don't think that they have the stomach to bring on another young pup who they're going to have to develop, who may not develop at a rate that they need. Look, you brought in Nesmith. He hasn't really developed the way you wanted to. You had Romeo. He's gone. Pritchard has been up and down. You just start going down a list of guys that they had to develop, other than Tatum and Brown, who they really – and I throw Marcus Smart in that category as well.
Robert Williams is a guy who was a late first rounder that they've developed. That's best case scenario, because 27th pick is not – obviously some of these dudes are out of the league already. If you look over the last couple of years at some of these drafts and look at some of these guys, you're like, damn, that dude's out the league already, 3-4 years in. But you can trade into the high second round if you see somebody you really want. Brad's got to maybe take some chances here. You've already traded your last 2 first-round picks. Trade up, whether it's a future, a future second or whatever, to go up and get a guy that you can target. Or who knows, the kid from Israel or the kid from France who played in something like maybe they'll be the answer. They'll get brought over to summer league, and we'll see if they get invites to camp or whether they head back overseas. But they've got to improve their infusion of youth. And, these guys, I love Malik Fitz and Juwan Morgan and some of these guys, but if they're not NBA players, they shouldn't be on your roster, or they should be on 2-way contracts, developing. And so you want to do that, and then have some of your guys on the end of your bench or on your bench as quality vets, I still think they should have just kept Joe Johnson. Why? Because he's an old head and he could have given the guys some advice. And I'm not talking about playing. He could have been that Udonis Haslam for them, right? Hey guys, this is what you need to do. Go on to Tatum, to Brown on the road. Like, if you're gonna waste a roster spot, don't waste it on Taco. Waste it on somebody. Use it on somebody who's gonna help you, in the locker room too. So I thought they should have kept Joe Johnson. I didn't understand why they just, to keep Juwan Morgan. Like, no offense against Juwan Morgan or Malik Fitz. Like, that didn't make no sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't make sense. You're right. And they definitely have some work to do. But the good news is that they don't have to do like a lot of organizations and ponder whether we need to blow this thing up or not. Because, I mean, the one good thing about this postseason run is I think it's cemented in the minds of many that you can build a championship caliber team with Jayson and Jaylen as your core, as part of your core. It's just a matter of surrounding them with not just talent, but the right kind of talent. Like, if you put a bunch of long athletic wings around them who can't shoot, that ain't going to do a damn thing for them. But you put guys around them who can knock down shots, all of a sudden they become more than just really good players. They become leaders of a championship caliber team. And that's ultimately what you want to have happen. You're not going to win a championship every year, but damn it, you can put a team together that can position itself to compete for it. And that's what I think that's where the Celtics are now. What can they do to keep the pieces or keep adding to their core so that core can continue to be in championship competitive mode? That's the challenge ahead that Brad Stevens faces this offseason.
And it sounds like he said on Tuesday when he was talking about what's next for the future, they're willing to just go all in, put money where it needs to be. So to your 2 points, it sounds like there will be a rebuild in some ways, but obviously with keeping this core.
What you got to do, you got to be a luxury tax team. You got to use that $17 million trade exception.
All the money.
Yes, and you got another trade exception, I think, of $7 million. That's by July. So, like, Brad's got it. I'm sure he's working. I have no question about Brad's work ethic, or he's prepared. He's going to be completely prepared for July 1st. But you got to hustle and get the guys in and use that trade exception for the Evan Fournier deal. Like, put some dudes on your roster. A college coach once told me, you pad your roster with guys who can compete for minutes. And the guys who don't get those minutes, they sit. But you have competition. You don't have 8 guys who can play and the other 4 or 5 can't. And that's what the Celtics have been the last couple of years. Now this, Brad did his due diligence. He got rid of Romeo. He sent out Shime. Taco, great story, but see you later. Tremont, you're not an NBA point guard, unfortunately. Like, he cleared out some space. He traded Ennis. Like, he cleared out some space. But I also thought he didn't help Ime for the playoffs by signing guys like Juwan Morgan and Malik Fitz to sit there and be cheerleaders. Like, you need ballers. Look at the Warriors had Iguodala, things like guys like that. They Jordan Poole off the bench. They even had, what's the kid's name? The dude with the braids who didn't play much at all. I can't remember his name. Hold on, let me look up his name real quick. But Damian Lee, Juan Toscano Anderson. You know what I'm saying? Like,
he's the first Mexican American to win the NBA championship.
Juan Toscano Anderson was playing like quality minutes at one time. I guess he just kind of lost out when Iguodala came back or whatever. But like, that's the end of their bench. Damian Lee's a pretty damn good player. He just doesn't, he's playing on a finals team. Like, that's what you got to have. Like, Juan Toscano Anderson can play quality minutes in Atlanta or Indiana or you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're going to be a title team, that's what your roster has to look like. Dudes who are like, man, I can play somewhere else, but I'm enjoying this ride. I'm sure Toscano Anderson would love to play more, but he's a champion. So is Damian Lee. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's. Yeah. Damian Lee probably could get on the Celtics rotation if he played in Boston. Like, you can't have 8 dudes and then the rest 5 or 6 are unplayable. And that's, and House a prospect, and you sign Stauskas, but I did not get when there's dudes out there who could have helped you, signing Pitts and signing Juwan Morgan. Like, what are we doing? Juwan ain't playing, so he's a cheerleader. Like, what are we doing here? Sign a vet who can at least be an old head on the bench, give some guys some advice. As I said, Joe Johnson, he didn't have to be Joe Johnson, it could be anybody. Excuse my language, sign Michael Beasley. Sign somebody who can get your buckets.
Michael B. Jordan.
Like I'm saying, like, if he's not good enough to play, then he sits. And what's Michael doing? He's playing in the big three. You don't think he'd be like, shoot, I'll sit on the bench in Boston and travel and eat all the first class food and all that. I'll do that. Yeah, shoot,
sounds good.
I'm good. I'll come back next year and do the same thing. Like what I'm saying? Like what do y'all think? These dudes ain't got no. These dudes, this is a tough league. These dudes ain't trying to go overseas and ain't trying to play in the big three. I'll be at the end of the bench. You think Joe Johnson would have been like, Joe, you're not gonna play much. Oh no, I'm out. I need to play 25 minutes. Joe be like, oh, I'll get the charter flight, free food, first class, 4 seasons on the road, and watching for the end of the bench.
Don't practice much.
Working on my game and knowing I'm probably not gonna play.
No, that's why the Warriors were in the NBA Finals for 6 of the last 8 seasons, because as corny as it sounds, the strengthening numbers model that they had really was true to what they advertised. And that's why they were able to win. You need a deep bench in this league. You can't rely on Tatum, Brown, and Al to be playing all these minutes. You need depth. That's common sense, obviously, but
that's like being cheap. Like the Celtics can't no longer be cheap or we don't want to be a tax team like this. You are in the big leagues now. You're not
spend
Charlotte.
Some money.
You're not Memphis. Oh, Memphis is gonna be good, but you're not one of these cheap ass teams. You want to run with the big dogs, like Mark. You say you want to roll with the big dogs in Golden State.
That's
then you got to compete with the big dogs and put your roster at that level to where Ime has options. And you know what? If a veteran doesn't play, you waive them. On a 1-year deal, it's about sometimes costing yourself some money or taking chances on guys and it doesn't work. But to me, that's where Brad let Ime down, because Ime looked at that bench and was just like, okay, who the hell can I play here? Tice, no. Stauskas, probably not.
Like the end of a pickup game and you have the last few players left.
Yeah, it's like, so he played 8 guys and then the 3 bench guys weren't scoring. So they were at a major disadvantage. Meanwhile, Jordan Poole banking in threes and hitting 30-footers. And you're like, okay, they ain't got it here.
But as Belichick would say, we're on to next season. Are we right? Am I right? Episode 81 in the books. It's been a fun season, though. And we still have a lot to talk about in the offseason. The viewers are not done with us just yet. But I think we perfectly recap this finals run, and we'll see how they can come back next year, bigger and stronger.
And we'll be talking, obviously, during the summer with Summer League and off-season free agents. So there's going to be plenty to talk about. And that trade, that TPE they got, I think it's like $17 million and some change or something like that. And Brad Stevens was asked about just, the finances and just whether they will be able to do what they need to do. And Brad was pretty emphatic and kept it real short and sweet. Like, we got ownership word that we're going to be able to do what we need to do. So we'll see. We'll see if they're willing to cut that check. But the one thing Wick, in conversations I've had with him through the years, has made absolutely clear that if they have a team that is a championship contender, they will pay what they need to pay in order to compete when it's clear that they're a championship contender. And there's no doubt right now that they came 2 damn wins away from winning a title. So we'll see if they're going to spend what they need to spend in order to get over the hump and win it and bring Banner 18 to Boston.
For Sherrod Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani A. Lunis. This is the A-List Podcast.